Emerging Threats Hub. What if scenario? What if, following a catastrophic disinformation campaign that nearly triggered a conflict between NATO allies, the United States and its key partners, officially adopted a new military and intelligence doctrine of strategic transparency, making proactive, verified openness their primary offensive and defensive weapon in the cognitive domain? The announcement of a strategic transparency doctrine would send shockwaves through the global system. Domestically, it would trigger an immediate and fierce political firestorm. Critics would condemn it as a naive and reckless giveaway of state secrets, arguing it would arm adversaries with a roadmap of our capabilities and intentions. Proponents, however, would hail it as a visionary 21st century strategy, a way to reclaim the narrative from authoritarian states. In the intelligence community, a massive internal realignment would begin, with new cognitive warfare divisions stood up alongside traditional SIGINT and HUMINT units. Adversaries like Russia and China would publicly mock the initiative as a sign of Western weakness and desperation, while privately scrambling to understand its mechanics and develop countermeasures, likely by intensifying their efforts to find and exploit the inevitable limits and exceptions to this new radical openness. Within a year, the first major test of the doctrine would likely occur. When a state actor attempts a false flag operation or launches a major disinformation campaign, a strategic transparency command would respond not with a denial, but with a data dump. Declassified satellite imagery, verifiable signal intercepts, and meticulously sourced timelines released directly to the public and partner nations. The success or failure of this first response would set the tone. Over 5 years, the world could begin to split into two epistemological blocks: the credibility block, built on verifiable open data, and the secrecy block, which doubles down on narrative control. This trust gap would become a decisive geopolitical fault line, empowering dissent within closed societies but also creating immense pressure on Western governments to maintain a perfect, unblemished record of truthfulness. A single significant error could shatter the doctrine's credibility. For the average citizen in a democracy, life would become more complex. There would be an expectation of civic participation in information hygiene. People would be encouraged to use new state-sponsored verification tools to analyze the data their governments provide. This could be empowering, fostering a new level of engaged citizenship, but it could also lead to profound information fatigue and a new digital divide between those who can navigate the data-rich environment and those who fall prey to more simplistic, emotionally potent narratives. Privacy would become the central domestic debate, as the push for state transparency raises questions about the surveillance of citizens. For individuals living under authoritarian regimes, access to the West's strategic transparency feeds via VPNs and other circumvention tools would create a powerful contrast, deepening their cynicism towards their own state media and fostering a quiet but pervasive crisis of legitimacy for their governments. This entire scenario hinges on the optimistic assumption that objective truth and verifiable evidence are more powerful than emotion, identity, and narrative. A strong counterargument is that this doctrine would fail spectacularly. Closed societies could easily frame the West's strategic transparency as a more sophisticated form of propaganda, strategic deception. They would train their populations to disbelieve it, pointing to historical instances where Western governments lied or acted in bad faith. Furthermore, the doctrine provides a powerful new weapon for domestic political opponents, who could use the same tools of transparency to dismantle their own government's policies, leading to a state of perpetual political paralysis. In this view, radical transparency wouldn't create strength, but a fragile, brittle state that collapses under the weight of its own impossible standards of perfection. In a world drowning in disinformation, what if the West's only hope was not to fight fire with fire, but to fight fire with radical, weaponized transparency? That's all for this episode of Emerging Threats Hub, What If Scenarios. I'm your host, Sébastien. Thank you for listening. You can find more analysis on this channel. You can also join the conversation online using the hashtag Emerging Threats Hub. Stay vigilant.